And it's really just a conversation that we need to have. So black, white, yellow, blue, green, whatever. Like we need to read this book, be informed, and have these type of discussions so we can move forward. So. Hey everyone, and welcome back for a new episode of Four Friends in the Book podcast. I'm Chris Colston, joined here with Isaiah Tooks, Kimberly Lake, and Laria Reed. So Four Friends in the Book podcast is our monthly podcast series where we have a discussion centered around a book that we're reading together. And we kind of meet here for that discussion of that book, any relevant topics that may or may not relate to it. So somewhat of a book club, book review mixed with just table talk amongst friends. So first and foremost, if you already aren't, please like, share, subscribe, follow us on all social media platforms, and also leave us a review on your podcast streaming services. We'd love to hear from you guys. Any feedback you have will be greatly appreciated. So again, Four Friends in the Book podcast, we read books over here. So the book for this month is in the nonfiction category. Good book, great selection. We are reading How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. A reckoning with the history of slavery across America. So y'all know the historical nonfiction is one of my favorite kind of categories of books. So I really love this book. Great read, great selection for this month. So let's jump into the discussion. Let's unpack this and kind of get into this book and try to unpack it. So first and foremost, what you guys thoughts about the book, like overall? And we're gonna start with Miss Lake.
Well, I actually really enjoyed this book. I listened to it on Audible. And I believe the author read it himself, but it was a really great book. When I was listening to it, I kind of wish this was the kind of book they let us read in history class, because I felt like it was a true representation of history and what really happened here in America. I thought Clint Smith, he's a great writer. He's very descriptive. Like when he was describing people or at an event, like I really felt like was there because he was so descriptive. So I overall really enjoyed the book. I recommend everybody read it. You can be in high school and get something from it. And so I just really think everybody should read this book. It's a really great book.
Cool. Isaiah, what about you, brother?
I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I'm a huge fan of African American literature, especially dealing with history. You know, my overall impression was that this was actually a great read, one of the best reads I actually read. You know, Dr. Smith, you know, he took you on a journey from the slave trade to present, basically how the word is passed or going through historical events, and you know, and how everything actually just coincides. He encountered, you know, with stories of what people told him about slavery and their different encounters with what has happened within this history of this country, not just with this country, but within the world. You know, it's a brutal history, and he sheds a lot of light on the fact that a lot of Blacks were subjected to inequality. And this book reveals a lot about the truth that I needed to hear. And now I'm on a journey to learn even more about, you know, this history.
That's good. Yeah, I agree, man. Like I said, I love reading African American history, kind of learning about our roots, where we come from, our past. And I think Clint does do a good job of really taking a deep dive to explore that, not only from just historical sites, facts that we may or may not be familiar with, but really just hearing people's stories. And I think having difficult discussions and conversations about our history. And so I think this book is a good read. Like it's mentioned, I think this is something that we all need to kind of be aware of, not only just African Americans, but just Americans in general, to know the history of this country, because I think a lot of stuff has been kind of glossed over or kind of just pushed in the corner. And so I think Clint does a good job of bringing some of these topics and subjects to the forefront. So yeah, I agree. Laria, what were your thoughts overall about this book?
Well, Kim took all of my words, but I will say it again. I thought he was an excellent writer. I think he's an excellent writer. I listened to it on Audible as well, and I felt like I was there. I felt that it was extremely descriptive. I felt like everything he did, it was almost like I was listening to a movie. So in my mind, I saw what he was talking about, which was that normally doesn't happen a lot for me. Normally I have to try to picture it in my head to try to follow along. But with him, it was like immediate. I would love to make that into a documentary or something like that, as if I'm a filmmaker like him, but I'm not. But I think that would be amazing to do because it was just so descriptive. It was so good. And it was so informative about history, which is American history. And I believe that if people in general, white, Black, Asian, Hispanic, if we all read this, you'll understand why victories are so important to Black people. Because I keep reading things and hearing things like, why do we always have to celebrate when a Black person becomes on the Supreme Court or when a Black person does this or is the first for something? You all are a part. And it's like, no, you don't understand the history and the historical meaning of where we've come from. So if everybody really read books like what he had and the way he put it, it was so objective. And I really enjoyed it. It was just a great read. I think everybody should read it.
Yeah, that's good. And you bring up a good point, which kind of leads into the next, topic, even the fact that we are making these historical feats now, and it's being celebrated so much because we have gone through so much within this country. But because we're kind of where culturally, it's a big deal to us, but it may not be as significant to others. But so in this book, Clint really just takes a tour around the U.S. and even abroad. He starts out in his hometown of New Orleans, goes to the Monticello plantation, so Thomas Jefferson's plantation in Virginia, then goes to the Whitney plantation in Louisiana, go to Angola prison, also in Louisiana, the Blanchard Cemetery, Galveston Island, Texas. So you think about Juneteenth, that's kind of one of the forefront locations for that movement. Even getting up into New York. So we typically think about, slavery, deep South things, but also unpacking some of the things that actually were happening up north. And so even Central Park, Statue of Liberty, just kind of hitting different topics and things, and even going abroad. He takes us to the House of Slaves and the Goree Islands in Senegal. So getting even beyond our borders here in the U.S. to just really hit these locations and really unpack how slavery has impacted us here within the United States, but also even worldwide. So out of those locations, which one did you kind of, best identify with, or which location kind of resonated with you the most and why? And so we're gonna start with Brother Isaiah on this one.
The location that was most intriguing for me was his trip to the Monticello plantation owned by Thomas Jefferson, a former president. And one thing I wasn't aware of was that Sally Hemming's, the mother of Thomas Jefferson kids, was the daughter of also Elizabeth Hemming's, a slave who was owned by John Wells. And Sally, was also his daughter as well too. And also Jefferson took Sally, to Paris, where she was there, and she told Jefferson that she wasn't returning back to Virginia to the plantation, that she wanted to stay in France, and just that she was actually going to sue for her freedom because it was actually illegal there to actually own slaves in France. But Jefferson made a deal with her that actually, if she returned, that she would be that her children would be free around the age of 21 years old. But he never actually freed Sally Hemings, his actually concubine. And this gets even deeper because Jefferson's wife, Martha, before she actually died before Thomas actually became a president. And she was also the daughter of John Wells, which means, you guessed it, Martha Jefferson and Sally Hemings were sisters. And it just that this is crazy. You never think about a former president owning slaves, and basically the forefathers of what our Constitution actually stands for. Not really what it stands for, but actually wrote the Constitution that all men are created equal. But they aren't created equal because you had your mistress and your children as the slaves. This is just crazy to me when I read that information.
Yeah. It was a lot to unpack, man. Like I said, we think about the foundation and the founders of our country, but to hear that the backstory, the behind scenes story that you don't always get, was kind of interesting to hear. And even how it's presented with visitors to that location. So that was good. Larry, what about you?
Why is everybody taking all my stuff Isaiah took? But yeah, we had all these chapters.
I'm sorry.
But I have been like obsessed with Sally Hemming's and their family since the 90s when I heard about it. I'm sure it was known. And even as a kid, I was just like, I need to know about this. This is so like I didn't know this. And so I always followed it. And even I don't know if it was, what's the name of the Netflix special where they talk about food and slavery? I forgot the name of it. But anyway, I didn't realize that her brother, James Hemming's, Sally Hemming's brother was James Hemming's. He was the one that Thomas Jefferson took to France once again to learn the delicacies of France. And he brought back like French fries. Well, he made up French fries and macaroni and cheese and all these different things that we use now, that we eat now. So I was always like, I didn't know that they were brother and sister until I started looking it up from reading this book. But anyway, that was my favorite, the Monticello thing. And it was just so, the ignorance that a lot of the people that he talked about that come to Monticello say, like, I didn't know Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. I thought that he was a person who believed everyone was the same. And then even with Jefferson believing slaves did better when they were happier and he didn't like harshness as much. And so it's almost like he was trying to justify him owning slaves himself and have all of these people working on, and just say, well, I treat them good. They'd rather be with me, and just kind of justify you're wrong. The people that were telling him about it, the tour guides and the people that worked at the cellar, tell him how people would come and just be shocked and say, oh, well, I didn't want to know about that. I didn't want to know the ugly side of slavery. So it's just amazing. That's why I said this book is really good as to the historical background of a lot of things. But I don't think a lot of people want to go there, because if you do, you have to start making changes. So
yeah, that's good. And even you mentioning how, there's, of course, you go into the plantation of Thomas Jefferson. So there's several different tours that are available. But typically the tours that are going in depth into kind of, Jefferson's kind of, dark past aren't the, favorite tours or the most popular tours. People just want to go see the house, see the kind of the mainstay pieces of it. But the tours that really get into the details about it aren't, typically as explored, or even people don't seek those out. So yes, it's interesting how, even the information is being available to people, but, it's just the willingness to even to try to learn or explore more isn't always there. So good point. I think for me, I was really intrigued by the Whitney plantation. So again, another location within Louisiana. And I think I was really intrigued because they just seem very forthcoming as far as putting all the information out there. Like, they're not trying to hold anything back. They are kind of unapologetic about talking about enslaved people, how this process was. And I think we need that honesty when we talk about this. Often, we've even seen stuff now where even in some textbooks are talking about how it was beneficial for people to be enslaved, and they came over and, their masters, treated them well and all this stuff. But the guys at the Whitney plantation seemed to be very just in your face about what was going on at that location.
True.
And I was really intrigued. Like, I really want to go there myself to kind of just kind of soak it up, man. I think it's just, there's so much that has happened within this country that we're not familiar with, we're not aware of. And so for me, the direction that they're trying to go in with that location was very intriguing, and how they're telling the story was very intriguing to me. So that was kind of my I guess favorite location out of the different sites that Clint Smith visited while he was writing his book. So, so Kim, what was that location for you?
Mine actually was Galveston, Texas.
Okay.
Where they were talking about, it's centered around Juneteenth and Juneteenth celebration. It resonated with me because, you know, growing up, you always hear about 4th of July, the America's Independence Day. And of course, enslaved people weren't free during that time. And then you also hear about the Emancipation Proclamation in school, and like that's when slaves are free. But then, you know, as you get older, you realize that slaves weren't really freed because of that. So I really resonated with Juneteenth in Galveston, Texas. I would love to go there and do a Juneteenth celebration. It's something, of course, now it's a federal holiday, but growing up, I wasn't really aware of it too much. And I know I remember seeing an interview with Beyonce's mom, Tina Knowles, and she was like, man, I'm from Texas, so they had big celebrations about it. It was a big deal there. But here, like, well, mostly around the country, it wasn't. So moving forward, I want to make it more of a celebration in my life. And, you know, hopefully when I have children and a family, like making that more of a celebration between us so we can know about the history. Even with Juneteenth, like those that were enslaved, you know, some owners didn't tell them that they were free, and some were still making them work off labor. And I think one guy was like, I still have fields you got to clear, so I don't care if you're free, you got to like do these fields. So even in that, it's just sad to see how enslaved people were treated. But yeah, Galveston, Texas is the place that I most connected with in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, even just considering, you know, Emancipation Proclamation was signed, but it was years before people even got the word of that. And so kind of knowingly and unknowingly, you have some slave owners that they like, hey, I ain't telling nobody. Like, we gonna finish this season out or finish this year out and not say anything until actually you had, you know, Union soldiers show up to really make this announcement and make it public. And so, yeah, Juneteenth is now a federal holiday. But yeah, I think, you know, in some communities it's more celebrated, but hopefully that since it is a federal holiday now, people become more familiar with it and what it actually meant to us, you know, culturally, but also just from a national perspective. So,
Right.
all right. So look, y'all know I'm a quote guy. I love quotes. I read these books, man. I'm always writing stuff down. I'm always making quotes about things. So as you're reading this book, and again, a lot of historical information. Clint is doing interviews. He's visiting these sites. Do you guys have a favorite quote from the book, and why? And actually, you know, since I'm a quote guy, I'm gonna start off. So my favorite quote from the book. Let me find it. It was actually, so it says, they are trying to destroy history they don't like. And so the reason this was my favorite quote, because I found it very interesting. So this is when Clint was at the Blanchford Cemetery, and he was there doing a Memorial Day celebration. And so it was the Sons of the Confederacy that were there holding this rally. And so that was the actual quote that one of the guys doing the celebration for the Confederacy spoke out. And I just found it very intriguing that from their perspective, they feel like the history of the Confederate soldiers is trying to be masked or not shared or not conveyed properly, when, you know, historically within this country, a lot of the African-American history has been covered up. You know, I made mention before how even the notion of being enslaved has now changed in textbooks. You know, even the notion of exploration of Columbus coming to this country and how we've learned that hasn't been properly conveyed. So it was very interesting that he was saying that about the Confederacy and how history was being covered up to not be accurately portrayed. But I feel like that's common in so many other places, and then we've just seen it firsthand. So that was kind of my favorite quote, because it was I was just kind of the mindset of typically what you think of that group is just was it's kind of unique to me. So it was kind of interesting. Kim, what about you? Favorite quote?
My quote was from the owner of the Whitney plantation, and he said, "It's not a feeling of guilt; it's a feeling of discovered ignorance." And that stuck out to me because I feel like white America in general always kind of push the narrative, and we talk about the history of, you know, America like we're doing now. They're like, we don't want to talk about it because it's not me, and you're trying to make me feel guilty of something I wasn't even a part of and all that stuff. But this is a white guy that was going to buy a plantation, trying to make money off of it. But when he learned the history, the true history behind it, it didn't make him feel guilty. He just woke up and was like, man, I didn't know I was so ignorant. And that spurred him to start researching more. He put like $10 million into the Whitney plantation of his own money, just so he can get the truth out there. So that just shows that the truth will set you free, as you know, as the Bible says. So you don't have to be afraid of the realness of history, because reading it is not going to make you feel guilty, but it will spur you to try to make things better or right the wrongs of the past. So that's what stuck out to me in the book.
True.
That's good. That's good. Isaiah, what was that quote? Did you pull one out of the book that's really resonated with you?
And Chris, you also were trying to make me a quote guy as well too. You know, the quote that that stuck out to me was, each generation must know the story of how we got to where we are today. Because if we don't understand, then we are in a position to go back to it. And this quote stood out because we see so many atrocities that are going on within the country, with the gutting of the Voting Rights Act bill, the elimination of quote unquote the critical race theories, especially African American literature, being taught into our school system, as well as just trying to get the John Lewis Act, Voting Rights Act, passed within our Congress. And within Black America, through everything that we've been through, we have become as strong as we possibly can. And this means that because of our Blackness in this country, that we get to celebrate these victories, as Loretta was talking about earlier, that they are so important to us because that we struggle to have these victories, and we understand that the work still isn't done, and we actually must keep fighting to actually make sure that it's actually better for our actual generation that are actually coming behind us.
That's good. That's good. All right, Loretta, what was yours?
I think we all had the same gist. We all think alike. So mine was, so many come here without an understanding of the primary cause of the Civil War. How people come to and go to these plantations and look at everything, and it's like, oh, that didn't have anything to do with the Civil War. It's like, it's no connection. It's no historical context. And as I was saying before, when you live in ignorance, which is the quote that Kim said, it's easier to move on with your life and not know, and just, oh, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't have anything to do with me. I wasn't a person that enslaved you. So we don't have to look at the Civil War like that. The Civil War was about my grandparents and how they fought for their values. Well, their values included enslaving Black people.
It's true.
It's harsh. Let's just go on and put it out there. All of us have family members who have done things that weren't right. And the more and the quicker you own up to your ancestry of what they've done and what they need to do better, you can do better. And you don't look at things the same way when you understand the knowledge, and when you go to these things and you don't just walk through a plant saying, oh, look at how beautiful the grounds are. They were beautiful because somebody was here tearing stuff down and working, and it was very cruel. And I just think that quote, along with the ones that you all said, really stuck out to me, because I feel like the Civil War has been made into something that's not true. It's not true. It's just, it's about the Confederate flag. It just means my grandparents. No, it means a lot. You got to look at that thing deeper than that. It goes way deeper. So I just think ignorance is bliss in a lot of ways. And yeah, which is another quote.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of gems within this book, and there's a lot of things, even the fact of, like I said, the history not being accurately portrayed, or even the perspective, because again, I think some people had perspective that was, just kind of one-sided, and there's not a willingness to even to view it from the opposite side, or see how someone else could perceive it differently. And so, you know how Clint kind of explains how the word is passed. Some history is kind of told through just kind of tribal knowledge. You're telling these stories about your family and things that you may have experienced from their perspective, but it's still a different perspective as well. And even some stuff is not factual, and so some information is being passed on and conveyed. It's not accurate, and so we have to be open-minded and have a willingness to really to learn the truth, so that we can move forward in this process of, I think, really healing the country. Because I really don't think until we have a true and honest discussion about the history of the United States, I think we're going to be stifled in our progress and moving forward. There's discussions about reparations and how that, what that looks like or how that should be presented, but until we're truthful and honest about what is happening within this country, I think it's going to be a hard sell, because people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to hear it, and people don't want to have those discussions. So, Clint Smith, brother, I appreciate you for writing this book. Like I said, if you guys haven't read it already, definitely pick it up. Definitely get a copy of it. Or listen on Audible. Like I said, it's a great read. A lot of history, a lot of information. And it's really just a conversation that we need to have. So black, white, yellow, blue, green, whatever, we need to read this book, be informed, and have these type of discussions so we can move forward. So good book. All right, so let's pivot a little bit. Let's switch gears. Four Friends in the Book podcast, we read books over here, but we also like to talk about things that are going on within our community, within our nation, within this world. And so right now, as we speak, we just had the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. I think Laria kind of alluded to it early on, in the African-American community, this is a huge win for us.
Yes.
What do you guys thought about that? Laria, I'm gonna come back to you. I'm gonna let you kick this one off.
This is female power on a whole nother level. This is the womanhood. This is just everything. Nothing makes me more happy than to see a woman who's of African American descent, who is qualified, probably overqualified, brilliant, intelligent, the best of the best, get a position that's so deserving of her service and what she's done. If you go through her qualifications, education, background, and see where she's come from to where she is now, homegirl got it going on. And I am so excited for her to be able to be in that monumental state, because she's one of many that will come behind her, which is what we're praying and hoping for. But somebody has to start the pace. And I believe with her, she's a great example. I believe that she will represent everyone. I believe that she will interpret the law the correct way. I believe that she will represent her heritage and everyone well. Well, it's all about your cough drop. Okay.
Is she crying?
This Lord told me to shut up. But anyway,
use a
I
lot.
love Miss Jackson. I think she's awesome. I think that she's amazing. And I have no words. I was just so excited, so happy for her, and so happy for us as a people, because I know my grandmother probably would have never guessed we would have a Black female as a Supreme Court justice. So that just does my heart good to know that we're coming along.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think for me, like I said, it is a huge step forward. We kind of talked about it. Yeah, I think even on our previous episode, we need representation within our systems to accurately portray and represent the people of our country. And so to think about this monolithic, Supreme Court that we've had historically, being traditionally just kind of, older white men, but now to have, Black female representation within the Supreme Court, I think is a huge step forward. And I'm actually also the fact that she has experience as far as being a public defender, I think is a huge thing. Typically, our justices are kind of on the prosecution side of the thing, or the side of the house. So her having that different perspective, being a public defender, representing people, I think will also be a huge for a justice to kind of have that experience as well. So I'm excited about this monumental announcement and her being kind of just appointed. There was some contention throughout the process. I mean, some of these crazy questions that kind of went out to her. I hate she had to go through that process, and it just couldn't have been about her record and her experience. Some of these things, what's a woman? Like it was just kind of ridiculous. But I'm just excited for her, and hopefully this is a step forward in us really having representation within our systems to really accurately reflect, our country and the people that reside within it. So, Kim, big moment. Ms. Ketanji Brown Jackson being appointed to the Supreme Court. What do you feel? How are you feeling about that?
I was excited for her, one, and just very proud. As Luria said, I'm a Black woman, so it's nice to see history being made, and then I'm alive to see it today. So I am excited for her. I'm excited for what she represents for, especially women coming behind her, because as you touched on, representation matters, not just for making the decisions, but for helping inspire other people. And of course, here we go with the dream talk. But there's some little girl that sees her on the Supreme Court now and knows that I can do that. And I think that's a lot of times when I hear, like, why do we have to highlight, as Luria said earlier, the first African-American this, or the first this, we're all American. Yes, we're American, but it means something different when you see somebody look like you break through a barrier, because it makes you believe that you can walk through it as well. So I think that's what she represents for a lot of little Black girls and Black women. And I just really believe that she'll do a really great job. So I was happy for her, am happy for her, and happy to see that I got a chance to witness a piece of history.
That's good. That's good. All right, my brother. What do you feel about this historical moment?
How do I feel? Justice sounds good on Ketanji Brown Jackson. Her career has been extraordinary, and she has endured the confirmation process with poise and grace. And, through every moment, she continued to heroically overcome the opposition and bigotry of those just questions that she would just actually ask during her confirmation. And for the first time in history, a Black woman will sit on the Supreme Court, and the pride that I feel is immeasurable. The highest court better reflects America, and she will actually help our nation with being more justly and actually doing more justice causing with what's going on within this nation. And this day will always be remembered in history, because Justice Jackson has moved the needle of what is achievable for Black women everywhere. And as you all stated, that representation does matter, because right now there is a Black woman in law school wondering if she even good enough, if she belongs there. And this confirmation is a symbol of Black hope, Black power, Black history, and most importantly, Black excellence.
You better preach, Rock. That was good. I felt like that was the rant.
Hey, my boy gave us the rant before the rant. Yeah.
That was a standing ovation. I said that was good.
That was good. Yeah, I think your words really capture, I think, how a lot of people feel. And yeah, this is a big moment. And like, we've kind of mentioned here, yeah, we do, take a lot of pride in these moments because there's been so many times in the past that we didn't have access, that we weren't even allowed to participate. So when we do make these monumental steps forward, it is significant. And so, and it's good for all of us. It's not just good for the African American community. I mean, this is good for the United States of America because we need representation. So good. All right. So just wrapped up the book, How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, talking about history, our past, and even talking about Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson now being confirmed. So even showing the progression that we've made, even with our troubled past and history within this country, that we now have the first Black woman appointed to the Supreme Court. So yeah, it's just a good discussion, good book, good conversation in general. So I appreciate you guys, having this discussion, having this talk, educating people. Me, I mean, it's been good. Yeah, but yeah, again, if you guys haven't read that book, definitely go check it out. So we get into that favorite part of our show. If you've been rocking with us for a while, you know what time it is. This segment that we call The Rant. 60 seconds, uninterrupted, no debates, no additional discussions. We're not contesting what's being said, just speaking freely from the heart. None other than my brother, the Rant Man, coming again. He just gave us a pre-rant about Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson. So I don't know what his next rant gonna be. I don't know if he's gonna continue that to give us something completely different. But my brother, the floor is yours again. 60 seconds uninterrupted. Starting now. Go.
Yeah, if Russell ain't had that bread, she ain't gonna be with him. Russell Square. Russell Square. Russell Square. Sierra had she has a good situation, but you gonna leave Future and get with Russell Wilson.
The thing is,
I think that's where
you
you're
gonna
wrong,
leave
though.
Future and get Russell Wilson. Like it's a type. Listen, bro, everybody got a type.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody has a type. You gonna leave Future and get with Russell Wilson? He's so damn square, and I love him on the field. He's a square.
So I've been following this trending topic of Channing Crowder calling Russell Wilson a square only because he has a clean image. And our depiction of what's cool or uncool was supposed to grow up when we grew up. Black men's public image needs to be repaired because I don't think there is another community/culture in the world where a man like Russell Wilson would be considered lame or corny. Black men images have been publicly tainted for so long that when some people see a regular, married, family-oriented Black man raising his children, he is then viewed as corny. If being chill, wholesome, family-oriented is perceived as a negative by Black men, then the issue isn't our public image, it's our perception. And the question should be asked, is Russell Wilson's ambition strong, or is his work ethic not good enough, or is it his ability to gain success through his athletic abilities and to keep this clean image? And this is bigger than Russell Wilson because there are so many Black men like Russell doing great for their communities and families. Their names are unknown because they are only getting the applause from their homes and neighborhoods, and that is enough for them. And that's that on that.
That's good, brother. That's good. Even how we're talking about the perspective of this country and the history of this country, we also have to change our perspective about each other. And that's true. I think you bring out a good point there and how we see each other. And so, yeah, brother, I appreciate your rant, man. Good information. Good information. All right. So, Four Friends in the Book podcast just wrapped the book, How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. We talked about Ms. Ketanji Brown Jackson being confirmed to the Supreme Court. And my boy Isaiah Tukes just killed this rant once again. So, of course, we read books over here, and we got some new information coming for you guys. So, Isaiah, tell them about what's coming up next.
Hey guys, before we let you go, please join us in our next book as we explore Black Kate by Charmaine Wilkerson. You don't want to miss it. Laria, please let the viewers know when they can tune in.
You guys can tune in with us every third Thursday of the month for a new book. All of us will be right here to give you great content so you can come on with us. So Kim, whatever you got to say, go on and tell them that.
And make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our great content.
Yes. And as always, guys, we thank you for rocking with us. Also, be on the lookout for those author spotlights. We're featuring authors, having discussions with them about their process as far as becoming published. So be on the lookout for those as well. And as always, let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow, and let's have a discussion here on Four Friends in a Book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back.